Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. Bonjour, bonjour à tous. Bonne année. Welcome to this very first webinar of 2021 for the Smart Port Challenge competition. With me today here, we have Alex Fryer. He's the product manager of the Intelligent Edge Solutions at Zebra Technology based in the UK. He will give us today an insight on the automatic physical item identification, decentralized trade and supply chains, and the meaning of the distributed ledger technologies in these circumstances. Alex, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ines. Happy New Year to everyone. I'm very happy to be here. We're at Zebra Technologies are very happy to be supporting the Smart Port Challenge. So as Ines said, I am the regional products manager for we call it our IES portfolio of solutions. But Zebra Technologies, if you have not heard of us before, we are a company of around 5,000 employees. We are working across North America, EMEA, Asia Pacific, and Latin America. And we have a wide portfolio of products and solutions. Our legacy is beyond software and data services, which is the area that I work in areas such as printers, scanners, mobile computers. We made a big acquisition a few years back in that space. Tablets, so more on the hardware side is our legacy. And what I'm here today to talk about, as Ines mentioned, is how are we moving to enabling those devices to access the cloud and to enable access to the data from those devices. So we're going to start off with, at a very high level, what are the interfaces that are available? And this is an area, of course, where we are very focused on working in, especially in our legacy portfolio. Today, there are, broadly speaking, 5 interfaces. There is the label, the barcode, the tag, beacons, and locationing. And we actually have devices, hardware devices, at the edge of the network that are generating data in all of these formats. So we have printers that are printing labels. We have barcode scanners that are, of course, scanning barcodes, scanning thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of barcodes every week. We have tags, beacons, and different locationing devices like RFID, UWB, etc., that are generating location data. But ultimately, what these data points are doing is turning the physical atom, for example, the packet of tomatoes, or the tire component, for example, into digital bits, into data, which is very useful and very important. Every scanner that we have has an application on the scanner that is taking that data and doing something with it, maybe sending it to a cloud platform, and then maybe there are some analytics that is doing some more crunching on the data of what that item is. But what we are also now moving towards, this is where we are at today, where we are moving towards, is adding context to the data that is coming from those devices. So it's very useful to know that a packet of tomatoes has a certain ID, product ID. But what you really want to do, what you really want to know as a consumer, is where have those tomatoes come from? Are they organic? Are they not organic? Because that will influence my buying decision. And from the organizational supply chain perspective, the government wants to know where those tomatoes have come from, where they've been imported from, where they have arrived to, what are the tax implications, etc. They want to know that without too much human intervention. But those are some examples of what it is saying here, which is what we are moving towards is providing context to the data that is coming from our devices. And how we are doing that, we'll talk about today. And you actually, if you are participating in the Smart Port Challenge, you will have access to the data services that we have built to provide context to the data that is coming from our devices. And the why is challenging. which is why it's great to see hackathons like this that are looking to generate concepts and ideas of how that data can be used, how the context can be presented in the right way to the right person or to the right organization, whether it's the border control or the consumer or the logistics carrier. But there is a lot of data involved with context. A lot of data, like you can see here, there's the who, the what, the where, the when, the why. And taking data from the edge device, of which we have a huge portfolio, like we talked about earlier, and making that accessible. And then also, really importantly, storing that and making where the data is stored accessible, which is where DLT and blockchain technology comes in, and our partnership with IOTA, can be a complex process. And so what we are looking to do and what we have done is to make it as simple and remove as much human involvement in the process of getting context about data from an edge device. And our vision is this. Zebra today works across a number of different sectors. We work in manufacturing, warehousing. We work in the air freight space and the logistics space. We work in the warehouse space significantly and the extendable yard from warehouses. We have obviously all of our scanners and location technologies in these environments, distribution and logistics. And finally, retail is a huge sector for us. And when we talk about end-to-end visibility, these are all of the key environments where visibility happens, where a scan happens, or where a print of a label happens, or where the RFID transaction happens, as well as, of course, the ports and the borders. And that is actually a space where we have technology at the ports, of course, but for me, it's where I'm most interested to see the innovations and the concepts that you build. How can we extend the visibility that we are focused on in the supply chain across all of these different environments to the port and to the border? And how do we make sure that the people in those environments and those organizations, predominantly the public sector, are able to access that data, and also that is secure enough to be accessed by that many different parties and different organizations and different agents within the supply chain. And when we talk about access, moving on to the technology itself that we have built, one sort of area in the industry that is often referred to, or part of the industry, is what Amazon have done with their business as a whole, but also internally how they have built their various different business lines with the huge organization that they are. And how do they create an environment internally so that access to data and therefore products being built by Amazon are done as quickly and in as much of an agile process as possible. And the way they've done this, they're one of the earliest companies to take this mantra, is that they're focused on an API first mentality. So if you're familiar with coding and developing, you'll be familiar with REST APIs. But ultimately, APIs are the connectors between different software platforms, and they are becoming the de facto standard of accessing data and accessing software. And as long ago as 20 years, Jeff Bezos had the mandate internally that we must have an API first mentality to be building when we're building products, when we're building software products, data service products. And now you can see what they have done with their AWS platform and how they are launching microservices and various different products from there. It has made them very, very agile, because the benefit of APIs is the ease of use and the ease of enhancements and adjustments to a product once you're using APIs. And this is exactly why, when we thought about what do we need to build to enable access to data, to Zebra data, and enable end-to-end visibility, this vision that I talked about in the last slide, we used a similar mantra and mandate in how we wanted to build our data services. And this is how we built our platform, which is called Zebra Savannah. So Zebra Savannah is really the platform that we have built to enable access to the data from our devices. So we launched this platform last year. In fact, last year, the year before last now, 2019. And we launched the platform to make it easier for our developers that are working with our devices and our partners to build applications using Zebra devices. As I mentioned earlier, and as you can imagine, we have a broad portfolio of scanners, printers, RFID technologies and location technologies, mobile computers. And these devices generate data. That's, of course, the primary purpose. And when they're generating data, that data needs to go somewhere and needs to be accessible. And so, of course, that has happened as long as we have had these devices. But what we are doing here is making it much easier to access that data through the cloud using REST APIs. So I'll bring up the website where you can find our developer portal and you can access these data services. But ultimately, we have a number of different data services to access data from these devices. And we have one particular data service that I will talk about in a couple of slides' time, which is around DLT and the blockchain. And we have worked very closely with our partner, IOTA, on this API that is built and ready to access. You'll be able to access this when you go to the developer portal. And the concept of that API is, as I was discussing earlier, is to make it easy to access data from our devices, but then also easy to send data from a device through one API call to IOTA's DLT, the Tangle. We are very proud that we have launched that, and we put a lot of work into that. So we are very interested to see the concepts that come out in you using this API, and also the usability of the API itself, because we believe that there is a huge opportunity in some of the challenges that exist in the supply chain around end-to-end visibility, and also still challenges on accessing and working with data and sending data to a blockchain in terms of it being as seamless and easy to use as possible. Those two challenges, we believe, bring a huge opportunity to this API, which allows you to send RFID data or scan data directly to IOTA's Tangle. And when we look at the API later on, you'll see that, or when you have a look at the API after this talk, you'll see that you don't need a Zebra device, which is good to test the API. If you're familiar with or you have a preferred developer tool like Postman, you can simulate an RFID reader or a scanner sending data to the IOTA Tangle through Savannah. So don't worry too much about, I must have a Zebra device to build a concept. What I'm most interested in, I think we are all very interested in, is just seeing the concept that you can build and the challenge that you're solving by using that API. So this is Savannah. Savannah itself is a cloud platform, like I said. It's hosted on Google Cloud, and we enable access to various different APIs to build concepts with Zebra devices through our developer portal. And we are also, as you can see on the right, we're actually using the APIs internally. So we have built a API first mentality internally, and we are using these APIs to build our own products. But also we have a big developer community that are starting to build concepts using these APIs. And quickly, some of the benefits that we thought about when we built this platform, and we have, the platform was built from feedback from developers of, we need this to work with your devices in a more seamless way, is on the left there, I talked about this, making it easier to access data on the edge and bringing the intelligence into a centralized cloud platform, and then you accessing that API wherever you are in the world, and aggregating that data as well. In many cases, in some of our APIs, we are aggregating the data and running algorithms on the data to see what additional insights we can gather from the hundreds of thousands of scans and various other data points that are coming from our devices. And the integration with your own solution or whichever partner solution and other solutions is a big advantage of using REST APIs. And that is something we'd encourage as well in your concept. You think about how can we enable access and enable most seamless experience with the API from various different agents within the supply chain. For example, how would you make sure there's a certain interface for an agent, a border agent, or a retail worker or a consumer to access the same data on the same backend DLT platform or cloud platform, wherever they are. We've also, our platform is 24/7, so whenever you're working on your concept, you'll be able to access the developer portal. And like I talked about earlier, a common interface, making this as easy to use as possible and a consistent design. You can use and test some of the other APIs if you would like. Not all of them require Zebra devices, and we have a mentor, Dino, who will be aligned to the Smart Port Challenge. So if you have any questions on some of the other APIs, he can help you there. And not all of them require a Zebra device, so don't worry about not having Zebra devices to build your concept with these APIs. And the developer portal, it's accessible here. So we encourage you after to go and have a look at the dev portal. It's very, autonomous in how you can use it. So all you have to do is go to the link here and go to products and Zebra Data Services, and it'll take you to the dev portal. You'll see all the APIs on there, including the IOTA API, which I'll talk about in a second. And go on there, start testing them, have a play around with them, and Dino will be there to help with any questions. Now, beyond the Zebra Savannah platform and what we are doing in our vision of this end-to-end visibility on connecting our devices to the cloud, like I said, we also have been working with IOTA for some time now. IOTA are one of the leaders in the DLT space with their platform, the Tangle. They also have a huge part of their business focused on crypto. And we saw the opportunity working with them. Predominantly, we are obviously not a blockchain company, a blockchain provider. However, we do have a significant market-leading position in the data capture world, in the scanning world, in the mobile computer world, in the printing, locationing world. And what we saw is the combination of the edge devices capturing data and the blockchain benefits, which I'll talk about on the next slide, and the analysts and most of the market saying that in the supply chain, it's the supply chain itself as a sector is the number one opportunity in how the blockchain can help with some of the challenges there. As you can see here, this quote from Gartner, we realized that there was an obvious cohesion between IOTA and ourselves. And additionally, because of our platform Zebra Savannah, we could use that as a window to access some sort of data service, which is the API we have built, to send data in a very simple way to the IOTA DLT. We have created a video actually, which we encourage you to have a look at, and there's also a webinar on YouTube that we did with IOTA, which describes, in this case, it's a very simple use case with a tire moving through the supply chain from manufacturer to the consumer, which has really interesting implications about car breaks down. How does the user understand what the issue of the tire is from, where it's from, who's the provider of the tire, etc., through a simple scan. And like I said, the webinar also goes into more detail about the API itself. But when we talk about DLT and blockchains, like I said, we are not a blockchain vendor. That's why we are partnering with IOTA. But what we have seen working with them and speaking to our own partner and developer community is that the provenance, the proof of origin, the challenge of counterfeit is all geared towards some sort of platform that is more robust and more redundant and more secure and more securely accessible than a standard cloud database is required to solve some of these issues with that are presented here. the traceability of the item. The traceability of the item solves many of these problems. For example, if you are buying a packet of coffee and you want to know where it is from, then your source of trust is looking at the packet and it telling you that it's from Ethiopia, or going to the website of the coffee vendor and seeing that that this is where their coffee comes from. But beyond that, there is not a huge amount of confidence and trust a consumer could have in where that coffee has truly come from. Whereas if in various points in that supply chain, there are automated non-human data events going to a securely accessible, hashed, closed blockchain environment, closed in the sense that it cannot be accessed apart from approved agents, then it means that when that coffee is going through the process from bean to roast to all of the different stages, then the data is being uploaded at each point in the supply chain. Let's say there are 10 agents in the supply chain, and it is not, the information of where that coffee has come from is not controlled by one agent, which it is today, which is the vendor. You see the coffee packet and you see that they are saying it's from Ethiopia. Okay, so you trust that, as opposed to 10 agents uploading data to a DLT, and that DLT being accessible directly by a consumer. And so there is no intervention, there is no potential risk in the trust of you, because you're seeing that it's automated, all the data is going up to the DLT, and you can have more confidence that you can trust where that has come from. So I'll show you a couple of use cases and websites to go to find some specific solutions in this market to help inspire you. But we saw a close cohesion and an opportunity with IOTA of, like I said, taking the edge devices that we have, the millions of devices we have in the market today, combining that with IOTA's Tangle platform, which is a fully built, open sourced, very reputable DLT platform, and having Savannah in the middle, which makes it easier for a developer to access and to send data. And so far, since we've been working together, we are already working on a number of projects, and we are talking through a number of different concepts in different sectors. But we believe that the opportunity here of our edge devices and IOTA's DLT can solve some big challenges in the supply chain. One such project that we have worked on is with Trademark in East Africa. Trademark were running a project to, as the example I just described, to increase the visibility, end-to-end visibility of tea and coffee and flowers going through the supply chain across Africa and leaving Africa. And they had some specific requirements. As you can see here, many of these requirements talked about earlier, are just not fit for purpose with a standard cloud platform or cluster of servers hosting data there. It needs a more robust, scalable, secure system which can be accessed by certain agents, which is very fit for purpose for a DLT or blockchain technology. So we've been working with them. We were very focused on the RFID data point coming from, so having a tag, RFID tag on a box or on even an individual packet. A box is probably more likely based on the cost of tags. And potentially also adding scan data to that ecosystem. And projects like this are starting to emerge in many different parts of the world. And I think really concepts around a specific product or item moving through the supply chain really helps bring it to life. For example, what are the benefits to all the different agents of coffee being easier to trace, easier to access data of the provenance, more securely stored? What are the benefits to the grower, to the roaster, to the vendor, to the consumer? When you bring it to life with a specific example, it helps certainly even governments and different parts of the supply chain understand how they fit into the ecosystem. And we, on the webinar, if you check that out on YouTube that we did with IOTA, we actually do a demo. We show a demo, not with a physical RFID reader, like you can see on the GIF on the bottom right there, but we use, I believe Postman is used in that. So really encourage you to check that out after, which shows how front end was used and did some very quick mock-up and demo of sending and receiving data from, could be anything, but simulating an RFID reader or a scanner. And like I said, the API with IOTA is accessible on the developer portal under the sandbox section, which you can access here. And we have our mentor, Dino, who will be supporting you building your concepts, which we're very excited to see. And just one of the last things to show you here, which we keep track of, and we're very interested to see how the market is growing. And like I said, seeing concepts really helps bring this technology to life. Here are some examples of data being sent from an edge device, whether it's a QR code or a barcode or an RFID tag or whatever other edge device. And these are not provided by Zebra, by the way, just to be clear. These are just market examples. Here are some examples of data points like that being sent to a DLT or blockchain backend. So there's one at the top there, halal chicken tracker, so you can check whether your chicken is truly halal and the origin of the chicken. That one's based in Indonesia, I believe. Tracer are based in the UK, I think. They are focused on diamond provenance. They have a fully fledged end-to-end platform that they work with diamond, parts of the diamond supply chain to deploy. There's a company in Ireland that do, I believe they are in Ireland, William Grant and Sons, whiskey provenance, which is a big sector, whiskey or spirits, beer, wine provenance. There's a huge amount of money lost every year on fake, or fake products being sent through the market there. And these guys have a whiskey provenance part of their whiskey bottle. So I believe you scan a QR code and you can see exactly where the whiskies come from. This Neurotags platform is in the retail sector for anti-counterfeiting. And finally, this EIT Food Smart Tags, I believe, is a UK initiative or EU initiative, I think, working with various different countries to tag food and again track food through the supply chain and store that data. I believe it's on a DLT or a blockchain. But there's loads of examples out there. I really encourage you to go out and search, RFID to blockchain, scan to blockchain. There's a huge amount of startups building their own products. There are consumer products like these whiskey products that are building their own environment internally, which is certainly possible. It's really exciting to see all these different concepts being built out and also being used in the market. It's a big part of the blockchain, which everyone is looking to see what happens, is the live examples of blockchain in the sectors. And the final thoughts I would say before finishing the talk, which would be my sort of challenges to you in you building your concepts for the Smart Port Challenge, is things that we hear a lot when we speak to our developers and partners and customers around the blockchain. 3 very simple sort of top queries that come up that we encourage you to think about when you're building your concept. First is making it easy to use, and this is a big reason why we built our API to make it effectively a one API call to send data to the blockchain. A front end using an API like that makes it easy to use. If I'm using your front end and I have no knowledge of the blockchain, then that is absolutely fine. In that case, Zebra Savannah takes ownership of sending it to IOTA hash, and the hashing and whatever else is done on the IOTA side. But think about that when you're building your concept. How do we make it as easy to use as possible and consistent for all of the agents that will be accessing it? Incentivizing participants, so not necessarily incentivizing them with money or with a commercial incentive, but giving them a reason to use it versus using a traditional cloud-based or database-based platform. Why should I use this, which uses the blockchain? How do you tell me what the blockchain is, and the benefits of the blockchain in my role as a participant in the supply chain? And finally, this is not maybe one for the concept itself, but something to think about when you're explaining your concept is how do you make it cost effective and scalable? What would be the cost implications of sending data to the blockchain versus a cloud database? And what would the scalability implications be? And in some cases, maybe the use case doesn't fit the blockchain or the DLT, which is fine. It's something to think about when you think about and you start looking at concepts like the diamond provenance one or the whiskey provenance one. Those are high value items. And so blockchain DLT very much fits that. And that's why you're seeing concepts being built. But think about, is your concept going to be cost effective and scalable? And also, who is going to be required to invest in that? Is it the public sector? Is it the which parts of the supply chain is going to be most sort of economically invested in the concept? And with that, that's the end of our lightning talk. I hope that was useful, and happy to answer any questions that come in.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks for this great talk. It was really helpful to understand a bit more about what Zebra is doing and also the connection to IOTA. I don't know if it's clear to everyone that IOTA is a nonprofit foundation who is developing the next generation protocols for the connected world. And they're really much into the open source domain and are happy to share their knowledge with you. One of the questions that I would have, if we can have access to the slides. Yes, Alex already mentioned that he is going to send the slides just after this talk, and we will upload them to the platform. Also, we will share with you the developer access that Alex mentioned during his talk. And furthermore, as Alex already mentioned a couple of times, there is Dino Gregorich, who is in the general mentors section, and he will put his availabilities to answer your questions directly. You can book a slot with him in case you have any questions to what Alex has just presented. So one of the questions that I would have for you, Alex, is how do you see the importance of trust in all these processes?
Yeah, it's fundamental, and I think that's a big reason why we worked with IOTA. The DLT and the blockchain technology, as I touched upon, is clearly designed to enhance trust in the data that is being put into a system. And traditionally, what we see is with our scanning devices and other location devices is the system is invested in, built and controlled by one party, which is typically our customer, and that is great for them. But for economies of scale and for various other benefits to reduce challenges that exist in the supply chain, there needs to be an open system. And see, by default, especially if you have border agents and governments involved in that system, it needs to be trustworthy. And again, that's why we very much and like the IOTA platform, the way it's built, the way the hashing works, and you certainly talk to Dino a bit more about that. It makes it a very compelling platform to send data to and to open up access to.
Thank you. You also mentioned the 3 components that a good challenge should consider. The ease to use. So how would you rate the importance of the user interface?
Yeah, I would say fundamental, really, because if you think about where the data would be accessed, a lot of our messaging to our customers and to the market is about the mobile worker. The mobile worker is becoming more and more important in all sectors. There are various technologies that are accelerating massively because the increase in what is available to the mobile worker in terms of them having a device, that device being very, very capable, being rugged, being secure, being our devices, for example, can scan, they have an Android system, and that means that the mobile worker is always mobile. They never have to go to a desk to access any system. And so that also means they're predominantly accessing mobile applications. And so the user interface needs to be friendly, but also friendly on a mobile interface. It needs to, of course, have a network connection, which almost all of our devices do. And that's something to consider, I think, in the concept as part of that that sort of challenge of making it easy to use. How do you make that mobile application, which will likely be easy to use, user friendly, etc. Absolutely fundamental in the supply chain.
So you would also deem that robustness as one of the aspects for user interface, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And something to think about, which taking it a step further, is even other implications of the mobile mobile worker accessing the data always on a mobile device. What are the implications on the network? What are the implications on where the device can be used? Where is it being used? If it's on a port, it needs to be a rugged enough device. It needs to be locked down. If someone could just pick that device up and start accessing or sending data to the blockchain. So if you really want to take a step further, which is very important in encouraging the wider supply chain to adopt blockchain technologies, think about all of those other factors that will come into the deployment and use of a concept like you're going to build using the blockchain in a live environment.
Yeah, and you also mentioned the incentivizing the users and the participants. So when we talk about the reason to use rather than the commercial benefits or incentives, how would you go about it if you come to an answer which is, oh, we have been using this methodology already since years? How do you go about it to say there is the need to change and to adapt to the connected world?
Well, that's the golden question, really, because otherwise I think we would have seen a lot more significant adoption of blockchain technologies. If I think the way I would put it is, how do we sell those benefits to each agent is the biggest challenge. And I don't think there's an easy answer to that, but I'll be very interested to see what comes out of, like I said, that these sorts of hackathons are really important to brainstorm. How do we incentivize each of those agents? And I think in many cases it might depend on the context. So I would really encourage, and we do this often when we run certain challenges, is think about a certain product or item, because there may be certain context of the agents within that supply chain that would change how you incentivize those agents. For example, if it's the food sector, then you have certain power sort of paradigms that are different to other sectors. Like, big supermarket chains have significant power in the food sector. How they can sort of mandate certain platforms down to their suppliers means that in essence, the way they might incentivize the different agents is mandate it. If you want to work with us, you must use the system, which is not the friendliest incentive, but it probably works for them based on that power paradigm. Whereas in other sectors, maybe the power paradigm between the manufacturer and the vendor and the consumer is a bit more balanced. So I would think about it that if I was building the concept, I would look at one particular example that you perhaps have some knowledge of how the supply chain works there, and think about what is the power shift between the different agents, and then how would we sell the benefits to those different agents, and what would the right incentive be for the different participants.
Yeah, I think this is really an important question to be addressed during our hackathon here. And the other last thing that you mentioned was the cost effectiveness and the scalability. And I guess this is really something where we are looking also into with this Smart Port Challenge here, is We are obviously looking foremost for solutions for the ports of Morocco, but also taking into consideration that there are other ports beyond, and it needs to be something that we can scale further, and also that can be easily adapted to other contexts. So I think this is really an important point to take care. Thank you very much, Alex. I did not receive any further questions from the audience yet. We have Dino on board who will be there to answer questions if this comes up after this call. I really thank you very much for your time kicking us off in 2021 with the first knowledge exchange here. Thank you so much for your time, for being here with us. And thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.